Welcome to Successful Living with Bill Napick. Every week we talk about success and everything that goes along with it. You'll learn the principles of success, how to achieve success, and learn to overcome challenges that may be getting in the way of success in your life. You'll hear from Bill Napick, a radio personality and business development expert, along with insight from special guests. If you're ready to find your path to success or take the success you're enjoying to the next level, stay tuned. Successful Living with Bill Napick is on right now.
And welcome to the show, Successful Living with Bill Napick, and today's Successful Living with Joshua Becker. His new book is called The Minimalist Home, Maximize Your Life, Minimize Your Things, and he has 3 other books that are incredible. We'll hear about them, and of course, his new book called The Minimalist Home. Ladies and gentlemen, Joshua Becker.
Well, hello. How are you?
Doing great, Joshua. It is great. This subject matter, of course, people are very interested in it, far and wide, not just in the United States, but everywhere else. I've looked at YouTube and been reading your book. You're all over on all the TV shows. But let's tell people, first of all, The Minimalist Home. This is something you've been interested in for many years, right?
Well, this is something I have been writing about for 10 and a half years, as a matter of fact. I didn't start out this way, but I was introduced to the word minimalism by my neighbor. It was a Saturday morning. I'd spent hours and hours cleaning out my garage. My son was 5 years old, begging me to come play with him. And I just kept pushing him off, one more minute, I'm almost done. I was complaining a little bit to my neighbor about how much time I'd spent taking care of everything in my garage, and she said, that's why my daughter is a minimalist. She keeps telling me I don't need to own all this stuff. And I looked at the pile of things in my driveway. I'd spent all morning cleaning. I always would have said I think that my possessions weren't making me happy. But as I looked at the pile of stuff in my driveway and I saw my 5-year-old son swinging alone on the swing set in the backyard where he'd been all morning, suddenly realized everything I owned wasn't making me happy. But even worse, all the things I owned and had accumulated were actually taking me away from the very thing that did bring me happiness and purpose and fulfillment in life. So that was the beginning of my journey towards a more minimalist home and minimalist living.
And when the term minimalist, it really what we're saying is we're adding to the fulfillment in life by reducing clutter, by reducing things, because life is so precious. The clock ticks every second, and by having less, we enjoy things more. We enjoy life more.
Yeah, it's really about removing distractions is what it is. Just like you said, our whole lives are made up of limited time and limited money and limited resources and limited energy. And any time and money and energy that we direct towards accumulating, pursuing, managing, taking care of, all of the physical things is time and money and energy that we can't spend on things that bring us real joy and real purpose and fulfillment in life. Absolutely.
And as I'm reading your book, some of the things that are obvious once you think about them is that each time we bring an object, small or large, it also comes with maintenance, whether that's as simply as dusting something. That takes time. And again, going back to the picture of your son swinging alone, it's better to use that time with the important things in life, and certainly to have the wisdom to know what things are important.
Yeah, I am pretty convinced that if you sit across the table from somebody and ask anyone, what do you most want to accomplish with your life, that nobody says, I just want to own a house full of junk. Like, no one says, I just want to own as much stuff as possible. We talk about love and faith and family and making a difference. It just, I don't know, statistically we see 5,000 advertisements every single day, and I think subconsciously we just get caught into this thinking that we want more things to make us happy, or we need more things to make us happy, and we don't even realize how it's actually how all those pursuits are actually keeping us from it.
The book is called The Minimalist Home, and you go through each chapter and tell people about each room. And I like one of the things that makes it very doable, or seems like it does, and that is where you say start with the easiest places first.
Yeah, I have, as you mentioned, I've been writing and speaking about this for years, not just all over the country, but all over the world. And it's oftentimes I'll take questions and I get to talk to people and I'll talk about minimalism. I'll talk about owning less. I'll talk about the benefits of it. And oftentimes the first question that I get back always has to deal with, what do I do with my sentimental things? What do I do with my books? What do I do with my arts and crafts? I'm never going to get through my storage shed or my garage. It's like our minds always run to like the hardest thing to get rid of in our home. And I say, number one, you don't start there. I mean, go through your living room, go through your bedroom, your closet, maybe your car if there's a lot of stuff in your car, and find these quick wins in these lived-in areas where you can complete a project. You can see how much better it makes you feel to not have clutter around you. And then that will kind of build up that muscle and build up some of that motivation and momentum, I think, to ultimately get to some of those more difficult spaces.
And we are talking with Joshua Becker, the author of the new book called The Minimalist Home. And Joshua, let's tell people, in case they want to follow along, if they're near their computer, let's tell them your website right now.
Sure. My website is becomingminimalist.com. Becomingminimalist.com.
And some of the other things that you talk about, as far as this, we'll call it, say, a home makeover, and as far as the budget that's required, let's tell people about that. It's easy once we get in the right mindset. It's not going to cost us anything, but give us everything, right?
Correct. It doesn't cost us anything to get rid of things. In fact, oftentimes we get money back when we start getting rid of things. It's actually surprising to me how many, as people go through this process, how many emails I get of people who found gift cards or they found money laying around. They sold some items, and I don't put this in any of the promotional material, but the book really quickly pays for itself as people. And honestly, it's not just the money and stuff that people find as they go through this, but all the money that is wasted on buying things and taking care of things. I lived my whole life paycheck to paycheck to paycheck until I started owning less and certainly realized like I had enough money to save. I was just wasting it on all these things that I didn't need anyway.
Well, thinking back, I even remember when my son was just under 1 year old, and he's now 34, but it's amazing. From birth, we are marketed to in one of the countries that knows marketing better than anywhere else, I think. We are marketed to with signs and advertisements. So it's easy, I think, for our mental state to be in that mode of always wanting more, and we see that more sometimes is a sign of success as far as more stuff goes. So it's easy to get into that train of thought and to develop, I think, bad habits. But it's great to think and be mindful of minimalism and what you're bringing forth in this book, especially in an important place like our homes.
Yeah. Oh, gosh, so many things to say. Advertisers, the whole message behind every advertisement is that we're not as happy as we could be. Our life is not as comfortable as it could be or luxurious or convenient. Like that's the underlying message behind every advertisement. And you're right, we just see it so many times. We start to believe it far more than we even realize. But I think that we can't, I like to mention, the advertisement isn't driving you to the store and walking up to the cash register or, click to ship on Amazon. It kind of feeds into, jealousy inside of us or envy, greed, sometimes this desire to impress other people with the things that we own. Like there are some of these, I think, unhealthy internal motivations that these advertisers kind of feed into and encourage. And I think that those two forces together tend to result in, garages we can't park in and closets that are too full and drawers that don't shut and wardrobes full of clothes we don't wear, right? It's kind of the synergy between those two forces, unfortunately.
And I would think that all of us from time to time, the term spring cleaning comes to mind, but all of us from time to time do, even if it's one part, if it's one drawer of our home, we do recognize the great feeling, the even feeling of success when we have one spot that's organized, or maybe one room or one section, or even the pantry. But the beauty is that if someone really takes your book to heart, and that book is called The Minimalist Home, if they take that and go step by step, which you do in the book, it's just gonna be, life is just gonna be more enjoyable when you have a clean, clear garage with stuff in order, and you come back to your house and you leave your house, all those things, right?
Yeah, the book covers 18 unique spaces in our home, everything from living room and dining room to bedroom, kitchen, home office, garage, storage shed. It works through all these different spaces. It offers a clear plan to go through each of them. One of the key principles in the book that people find very helpful is this whole idea of purposes, that our homes serve a purpose, and then each of our rooms serve a purpose in the home. Our home ideally is a place where we find security and acceptance and rest and stability, right? That's what makes a healthy home. But a home is also like a launching pad, a port of departure is the phrase that I use in the book, where we come home to rest, but for the sake of going out into the world and making a difference and living our best lives to help other people. And then each of the rooms inside the home should serve a purpose, right? Our bedroom should be for rest and intimacy, and the kitchen should be for preparing food, and dining room for fellowship. And as we begin to think through, okay, what is the purpose of this room? Then what are the items that I need to keep in the room in order to accomplish that purpose, and what is actually distracting from it?
That's exactly right. Purpose is so important. And by having those rooms, to defining the purpose in the rooms, it helps us define what we want to do when we leave the house and what we're designed for, our purpose in life. In the notes that I have about the book, it has here, the one thing that will motivate you to go minimalist. What would that be, Joshua?
That would change from person to person. For me, it was the sight of the things piled up in my driveway, my son alone in the backyard, and the moment was, man, I want to spend more time with my family. I want to spend more time with the things that are most important to me. So that's what it was for me. My kids are now 16 and 12, and that's still one of the most motivating factors for me. But others will find I hear I want to travel more. Some people are motivated to minimize because they want to have more people into their home, and they find that the clutter is getting in the way of that. Others are reaching an age where they want to downsize or they need to downsize. Some want to finally get ahead financially, or retire early, or find a different job that suits their passions, not just their paycheck. And so it's actually one of the things I ask people to do at the very beginning of the book is get clear on what motivates you to want to own less, and write it down and refer to that often as you're going through the process.
And the people that may be listening to this, as you mentioned, the different reasons that we would have, but there are single people out there. They live alone. There are people that are married without children, or people where the nest is now empty, or it's probably a little bit harder, I would think, looking at my son with the two kids at a very young age. And I think that when they bring toys and then they see other kids having, I want that. So how we can, especially with children, how do we, if we have one or two kids that are small, how do we keep things in order?
Yeah, or 3 or 4 or 5
no.
kids that are small. Well, it's first important to realize that it is more difficult when you have a family. I mean, it's always more difficult where there's more than one person in a home. So a couple is more difficult than a single person. A family of 4 is going to be more difficult than 2. However, when you have kids, it's more difficult, but it's more important, because our kids are watching us. And if they see us accumulating more things than we need, if they see us ordering things from Amazon, if they see us bringing things home from Target, or constantly talking about what I want to buy or what we need to buy, when they see us living that way, like their natural reaction is that they're going to want things too. If you're pushing your son through Target and he's asking for toys on the shelf, I mean, he didn't drive himself to Target. Like, this is what you do when you go to Target. You find things on the shelf that you want, and you put them in your cart, and you bring them home. So it's more important. The key always, I think, for parents is to know that you need to start with your own things first. Most moms groups that I talk to, they want to go home and get rid of all their kids' clutter right away. And certainly there may be more of it, but it's pretty unfair to, hear an interview on the radio about minimalism and think to yourself, I'm going to go home and get rid of all my kids' stuff or all my husband's stuff or all my wife's stuff. So you got to do your own work, do your own rooms, go through all your own things first, explain to your kids why you're doing it. Look for physical boundaries when you do get to your kids' stuff. Empower them to. You can keep whatever toys you want as long as it fits in this closet or fits against this wall. Your arts and crafts need to fit in this bin. Those physical boundaries are helpful for kids, and then empowers them to make the decisions about what to keep and what to get rid of to fit inside that space. I think tends to be pretty helpful for children.
And I'm thinking about the child, too. In this exercise, it probably helps them to develop their discernment to know what's important and what is not. Now, there's so many things to talk about. I'm going to try to hit a few here as we wind down, but we have here three things that you can declutter now. What would those be, Joshua?
Three things. I would start easy. I would tell people to go and declutter their car. Their automobile, if they have one, just take everything out that you don't need. For most people, the living room tends to be an easy space that they can finish in a relatively short period of time. And then I would go for either your bedroom or your bathroom, whichever one you think would be the most easy to complete. The benefit to each of those three spaces is that you spend time there. You drive in your car, you sit in your living room, you go to bed in your bedroom. And so when you minimize, then begin to notice how it makes you feel. I remember going through my living room and get rid of things that I didn't need, and I sat down on the couch, and it felt so calm and peaceful in the room with less stuff around me. So I would tell people to do those three spaces to get started.
Also, digital clutter. That's a whole nother story. What do we do about all the files, on our many devices? Perhaps we might want to delete a device or two, but what about digital clutter?
Oh, yes, it is. It is different and similar in the same way. I'll start by saying I am not against technology. I think that technology makes minimalism more possible today than ever before. On my phone, I can have books and movies and credit cards and maps and photos and music. So in some ways, technology makes minimalism easier than before. But when it becomes a distraction is when it is just the same problem that our physical clutter is. Programs on the computer that are slowing it down that we never use, desktop icons that are distracting to us, too many browser tabs open, any of those things that we begin to collect that keep us from, fully using the technology as best we possibly can is when it's time to do the hard work of getting rid of the things that don't need to be there.
Our guest is Joshua Becker. The book is called The Minimalist Home. But we want to tell people also you have three other books on this same subject one is called, and I love the title, the other one that I have is called The More of Less. But let's tell people a word on some of your other books and the website again, Joshua.
Sure. The website is becomingminimalist.com and tends to be the home for everything that I do. The More of Less, Finding the Life You Want Under Everything You Own, came out 2.5 years ago, and it makes the case for minimalism. So it's the why someone would adopt a minimalist lifestyle. The Minimalist Home then is how to do it. So how to go through your home room by room and implement some of these principles. I have a book called Clutter Free with Kids, which is specifically written for parents. It goes through the 10 most common clutter areas from having kids in the home and offers ideas for those. And then there's a fourth book called Living with Less, An Unexpected Key to Happiness, which is written for high school students from a specific Christian perspective.
All this you can find at becomingminimalist.com. The author is Joshua Becker, doing such important work. Joshua, before we close out the show, what else would you like people to know about?
I would like them to know, maybe I'll just quickly, I would say, I think some people have this misconception that minimalism is about sacrifice and boredom and removing joy from your life, and I have found it to be just the opposite. I have found that minimalism frees up resources to pursue real joy and real purpose in life, and I've never been happier than I am owning fewer things, and I have found that to be true in people's lives over and over and over again.
Simply go to becomingminimalist.com. Joshua's website. Again, the newest book is called The Minimalist Home. I'm reading it by the fire last night and the night before. It's incredible. Highly recommend it. And Joshua, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having this conversation.
And you've been listening to Successful Living with Bill Nampick today. Successful living and taking it to the next level of success. Get Joshua's new book, The Minimalist Home, Joshua Becker. Thank you so much for listening. Simply go to radiobill.net for more information, and thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next week.